To say that Lucasfilm is a house divided would seem to be an understatement these days. With competing visions, public outbursts on Twitter, and creators showing contempt for their audience, at least on the Kathleen Kennedy side, we are not only seeing differing visions for Star Wars, we are also witnessing different philosophies when it comes to hiring and maintaining fan engagement. While the Kathleen Kennedy faction seems to openly antagonize the fan base, the Jon Favreau Dave Filoni faction within Lucasfilm seems perfectly content to keep a low profile. A strategy which has paid off, yet seems to rile those sympathetic to Kathleen Kennedy and her faction. In this video, we'll delve into the launch of Star Wars: The High Republic, why its #1 status on the New York Times bestseller list may not be all it appears to be, and how the Favreau-Filoni faction, and specifically Gina Carano, may be contributing to the apathy surrounding Lucasfilm's new publishing initiative. After months of delays and fan ridicule, Star Wars: The High Republic has finally landed on bookstore shelves. Openly mocked for its lackluster characters, The High Republic now even attempts to paint one of Star Wars' most beloved characters, Yoda, as a failure. In The High Republic, Yoda's Jedi Order is portrayed as being disconnected from the population, corrupt, mistrusted, and misunderstood by people across the galaxy. In The High Republic, it would be a recipe that would give rise to the Sith. Yet with this dour outlook on the galaxy and constant fan beratement, Star Wars: The High Republic would still debut in the top spot according to the New York Times bestseller list. Author Charles Soule's The Light of the Jedi became a #1 bestseller on their hardcover list, while Krystina Arielle's A Test of Courage came in at #2 for the middle grade hardcover list, coming in behind J.K. Rowling's The Ichabod. Yet according to the blog Pirates and Princesses, Google, who tracks internet trends, shows that search interest for The High Republic is at best flat. The Mandalorian and one of its stars, Gina Carano, frequently trend above The High Republic in terms of Google searches. So with the larger general population indifferent to The High Republic, how can it still be a New York Times #1 bestseller? Well, the answer may or may not, depending which way one looks at it, surprise you. Started in October of 1931, the New York Times bestseller list has been the benchmark for publishers. Getting a book on the list is a major feather in the cap for any author, as it translates to sales and is considered a hallmark of literary success. But is the New York Times bestseller list really an indicator of robust sales? Or is the list itself completely arbitrary? How does the New York Times determine what is and isn't a bestseller? By their own methodology, the Times states that the appearance of a ranked title reflects that sales data from reporting vendors has been provided to the Times and has satisfied commonly accepted industry standards of universal identification, such as ISBN 13 and EISBN 13 codes. All identities, anecdotal, contextual, and other information about the retail sales of any title, as well as overall sales data, are provided with the expectation and assurance of confidentiality by every vendor and are protected by non-disclosure agreements. Sales are defined by completed transactions by vendors and individual end users during the period on or after the official publication date of a title. Institutional, special interest, group, or bulk purchases, if and when they are included, are at the discretion of the New York Times bestseller list desk editors, based on standards for inclusion that encompass proprietary vetting and audit protocols, corroborative reporting, and other statistical determinations. When included, such bulk purchases appear with a dagger. Publishers and vendors of all ranked titles must conform in a timely fashion to the New York Times bestseller list requirement to allow for examination and independent corroboration of their reported sales for that week. Sales are statistically weighted to represent and accurately reflect all outlets proportionally nationwide. An asterisk indicates that a book's sales are barely distinguishable from those of the book above. All of this seems well and good. However, as with any system, there are those who would find ways to game it for their advantage. According to Forbes contributor Jeff Berkovisi, in a February 22, 2013 piece, he detailed that it is completely possible to buy a spot on the bestseller list. In the piece, he details how Soren Kaplan, a business consultant and speaker, hired the firm Results Source to promote his latest book titled Leapfrogging. Kaplan hired Results Source to, in no uncertain terms, buy enough copies of his book, which he would in turn sell at signings and as part of his fees at speaking events, in order to secure a spot on the New York Times bestseller list. Kaplan said, With a $27.95 list price, I was told that the cost of each book would total about $23.50 after various retail discounts including $3.99 for tax, handling, and shipping. To ensure a spot on the Wall Street Journal bestseller list, I needed to obtain commitments from my clients for a minimum of 3,000 books at about $23.50, a total of about $70,500. I would need to multiply these numbers by a factor of about 3 to hit the New York Times list. The piece goes on to state that the total cost would come in around $211,000, in addition to Result Source's fee, which is about $20,000 in order to make the New York Times bestseller list. With that added cost, Kaplan opted to make the Wall Street Journal list instead. There have been cases where books were kept off the New York Times bestseller list for editorial reasons, despite being actual bestsellers. William Blatty's novel, The Exorcist, sold 10 million copies and yet was kept off the New York Times bestseller list, which he claimed in court was a decision that cost him tens of millions of dollars. The Times rebutted that the list did not purport to be an objective compilation of information, but instead was an editorial product. The case went to the Supreme Court, with the court siding with the New York Times in that the list is not supposed to be accurate, but reflective of their judgment. This means that a book can reach the top spot due to an editorial judgment call, without having the sales to justify it. If the New York Times bestseller list is completely arbitrary, as some suspect, then why go through the trouble of securing a spot on it? In 2004, then Assistant Professor of Strategic Management Alan Sorensen claimed that books that appeared on the New York Times bestseller lists did see a boost in sales. Readers would use the Times list as a barometer as to what books were worth reading. Writers who weren't well known to the general public often benefited the most from appearing on the Times bestseller list, while authors who were bigger names did not. It should be noted that while the New York Times has its own methodology determining which authors and which books make the bestseller list, Amazon, the world's largest online retailer, tracks sales across all formats. As of this writing, Charles Soule's The Light of the Jedi is currently at number 65 on Amazon's bestseller list in overall sales, while coming in at number 6 for ebooks and number 24 in its action-adventure category. Their Kindle edition comes in at number 70. Krystina Arielle's A Test of Courage clocks in at number 89 in the children's science fiction and fantasy section. No matter what the New York Times bestseller list may say, it would appear that none of the High Republic books are bestsellers in any way. You may be asking, how does any of this tie into Gina Carano and the current state of Lucasfilm? That is something we're about to get into. Midnight's Edge has covered in previous videos how Lucasfilm is currently a house divided. On the one side is the Kathleen Kennedy faction, which is bathed in identity politics and has run the brand into the ground. On the other is the Favreau-Filoni faction, who are behind The Mandalorian and whose star Gina Carano has become a fan favorite. The High Republic is a product of the Kathleen Kennedy faction and the Lucasfilm Story Group, which has come under fire recently when one of its members, Pablo Hidalgo, openly mocked YouTuber Star Wars Theory, a cancer survivor who became overwrought with emotion upon witnessing the return of Luke Skywalker in the Mandalorian season finale. Hidalgo has since apologized, however that appears not to be the end of it. Recently, the High Republic show's host Krystina Arielle and her tweets came to light, and rather questioning her hiring or apologizing to a significant portion of the fanbase, the official Star Wars Twitter account backed Arielle. Fans were taken aback, not by the backing of Arielle, but by the lack of mention of Mandalorian star Gina Carano, who has been the subject of harassment for a certain segment of fans on Twitter, many of whom have branded her as transphobic for refusing to put pronouns in her Twitter bio. The question is, why would the official Star Wars Twitter account choose to back Krystina Arielle, but not Gina Carano, one of the stars of their most popular show? On that note, we recommend that you check out the ladies of the Fandom Menace as they break down the Krystina Arielle situation in one of the most memorable episodes of our Toxic Femininity podcast to date. You will find the link to the episode in the description. But as to why Lucasfilm would back Arielle and Arielle only, one of the possible answers may surprise you. On January 25th, Bounding Into Comics reported that in a YouTube video, author John Delarose claimed that this may be an elaborate and coordinated marketing campaign on behalf of Lucasfilm. Delarose claims that this was a stunt to drum up attention for the High Republic, a product, in his words, that nobody is interested in and nobody wants. Delarose says, "But this has been the game plan all along. She probably did these racist things intentionally. And I think that it is a marketing stunt because nobody is interested in this Disney High Republic stuff. If you've gone through and even perused it, it just looks like an awful outing, and it's very clear they are pushing people in there as diversity hires intentionally. It's sort of an Al Sharpton shakedown, but with science fiction. And nobody is going to want it. And so because nobody is in advance going to want it, they are going to try and make a political cause out of it in order to generate sales." Delarose also claims that this is not the first time Disney has done this, stating that this was the exact same playbook employed for Captain Marvel. Delarose says, "So they trotted Brie Larson out there to say controversial things in order to get free promotion from the press out of this, and to get people hyped up on the political end so that they are backing the cause. And that's what happened with that movie, and it worked very well. So this is the playbook at this point, and they are doing it again." Delarose further states that the media and sites like the Mary Sue were all too happy to take the bait, and that news sources like the BBC were disingenuous when they claimed that Arielle was the subject of abuse, while she was the one doing the abusing. Could this be a cheap marketing stunt to spur interest in a product that nobody wants and nobody will buy? We've already seen similar instances with other films such as The Last Jedi, and others such as Birds of Prey and Ghostbusters 2016. If they are shifting the narrative from how bad the High Republic is to compelling fans to buy it out of guilt, then as with the films previously mentioned, it may be a strategy that will ultimately fail and further damage the Star Wars brand. Let us know what you think of all of this in the comments.